We got old rules in a new day scene. Same big principles, different machine. The how keeps changing, tech moves fast. So we check the settings, cut the deadwood past. Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks. Lane enrollments doing overtime tricks. Used to be 2 weeks, now it's 3. If we do nothing longer, you'll see. So we tighten the timing, smooth the lines, start the process earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts, get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? No treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. Auto updates, moving addresses along. Go data, keeping details strong. Roll stays current between each race. Less last minute chaos, faster pace. Advanced voting, 12-day run. Make it formal, job gets done. No costly letters sent by post. More modern system, cut the toast. And prisoners sentenced, no vote while inside. Consequences land on the other side. Serious offending held to account. Serve your time, then re-enroll back on the mound. Mental health detention kept the same. 3 years plus, that's still the frame. And promoted details, safer to share. Less risk, less harm, more fair. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? Treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. You should be ashamed, 'cause here's the truth. You made it harder for everyday youth under urgency. Rights get clipped, democracy's ladder missing rungs that slipped. They say timeliness like it's the crown, but it's people showing up, don't shut them down. 100,000 turned up last time, now you call them drop kicks in the grave. If your first vote's turned away at the door, you don't come back, seen that before. So I push this if it won't speed the count. Feels like tilting the field, stacking the mound. They had other options, read the page, but chose the cut, set the stage. Harder to vote, easy to claim, but we see the game behind the name. 13 days, 13 days. Who gets locked out when life derails? 13 days, 13 days. Is it order or a vote or jail? Oh, negotiate weeks for a coalition seat, but won't spare a few days for democracy. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. If voting didn't matter, why shape the flow? Shadowy influence, let it show. Unemployment rising, youth shut out, yet you close the door when they come about. Human rights says it plain and clear. Foundational right, don't interfere. So why not let updates do their work? Right out to 26, don't jerk the yoke. And food at a Merry Monarchy, Tanga not.
And welcome to tonight's Order Paper podcast. Sorry, we've got some bad, well, there's a few bit of bad news, but we'll get the first part here is Laura is not feeling the best today, so I've just basically she's said she's not coming. We wish her the best and getting better. More sad news that has come out, which is not something that would be expected. We don't normally announce about former mayor's death, but Jules Radish, the former mayor of Dunedin and current sitting councillor, has passed away today after, I think it's a heart attack. And basically has sat down there and just trying to, unfortunately is no longer with us. I'd like to thank Mandy Mayhem-Bollock, councillor for Dunedin City Council, for making that information available, as I'd probably say the most, off the press sort of approach that sat down there and came with it, because this was something that she has posted on there that she actually had hopes that he was going to pull through, and unfortunately that was not the results. He was the mayor who represented Dunedin when it came to leading for the trying to stop the scale back of the hospital with the rebuild of the Dunedin hospital and trying to keep it to remain its tertiary status, which makes logical sense when you're right next door to a medical school. My quick interaction was shaking his hand when Cliff, the ambulance, was on Lambton Quay. So, yeah, that's my first and only interaction with him, which wasn't even really saying much. It was just shaking hands. It was like, sorry, can't talk much more. I've got to get back to work. So, yeah, that's the interesting part that has got on there. So let's kick off with the first bill this evening. It is the bills this evening. We've got the Building and Construction Centre Strengthening Operation Licensing Regime Amendment Bill, first reading. We've got a couple of these. This one was read under urgency in the middle of December. So let's kick it off with Chris Pink's first speech. Oh, and I better put that one on there. That will work a lot better. And then we get ready to... Let's kick it off.
Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on Government Order of the Day number 2.
Building and Construction Sector Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill, first reading.
Honourable Chris Pink.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I present a legislative statement on the Building and Construction Sector Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. Honourable Chris Pink.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Building and Construction Sector Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Transport and Infrastructure Committee to consider the bill. At the appropriate time, I intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 19 March 2026. Madam Speaker, the Government is making changes, I will say with the help of others in this House, I'm pleased to say, to the building and construction control system that will place greater responsibility on building professionals. These changes mean that it is important that building professionals can be held appropriately to account in a timely manner. This bill will make a number of changes across 3 acts to ensure the licensing regimes for licensed building practitioners, or LBPs, electrical workers and plumbers, gas fitters and drainlayers are effective, efficient, robust and sustainable. The bill enables more efficient disciplinary processes, and here, Madam Speaker, is how it does it. Currently, the Building Practitioners Board must hear every complaint brought before them, even if the complaint might be frivolous or vexatious. This means that complaint processes take longer and the Board's resources are used on matters that do not require their attention. The bill addresses this by further separating the Board and Registrar functions, allowing the Registrar to assess and triage complaints. An investigator then will only be appointed if the Registrar is satisfied that the complaint is not frivolous or vexatious. This will allow the Board to focus their resources on complaints that require their attention and reduce the time that it takes to resolve complaints. The bill also removes restrictions on the ability for the Registrar of the Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drainlayers Board and the Registrar for Electrical Workers Registration Board from initiating complaints. This means that if the registrars of these regimes become aware of poor behaviour, they can proactively initiate an investigation, instead of allowing that behaviour to continue unchecked while waiting for a formal complaint to be made. Madam Speaker, the bill will also make information easier to access, and I knew you were wondering about that. Currently, when a licensed building practitioner's licence is cancelled for disciplinary reasons, or they become a Member of Parliament, Mr Cameron Luxton, their name is removed from the public register. Mr Cameron Luxton's name is still on at least one register. I think it's probably the LBP one. This makes it more difficult for consumers to find out information about who has been disciplined and the reasons why. The bill will reverse this so that the practitioner's name and the reasons they were disciplined will be displayed on the register for 3 years. Kind of like being a Member of Parliament again, Madam Speaker. We're very much on a register for 3 years, aren't we? This will improve transparency and help consumers make more informed choices about which practitioner to engage. This is feeling more and more like democracy 101. But anyway, the bill will help to ensure poor practitioner behaviour will be held to account. Again, this is getting uncanny. Unlike licensed building practitioners and many other professions, there are currently no codes of ethics for licensed plumbers, gas fitters and drainlayers, or for that matter, licensed electrical workers. This means that they're not bound to standards of behaviour when representing their profession in the sector. This can make it difficult to hold them to account for poor behaviour, where the behaviour is not directly related to the work that they had done. This bill aligns these professions with licensed building practitioners by including empowering provisions for codes of ethics to be made for these professions so that poor practitioner behaviour can be held to account by the respective boards. This will reinforce the expectations of professional conduct and competence and incentivise practitioners to consistently deliver safe, compliant and high-quality building work. Madam Speaker, the bill will also reduce the administrative burden for licensed building practitioners, whom I shall just refer to now as LBPs. The Building Act requires LBPs to renew their licence every year. However, they only need to complete skills maintenance every 2 years. The bill will move the frequency that a building licensed practitioner must renew their licence from the Building Act to the licensed building practitioner rules. This will allow for greater flexibility to enable the renewal period to be aligned with skills maintenance to reduce the administrative burden for both the practitioner and the board. The bill will also promote consistent complaints processes across licensing regimes, Madam Speaker, giving practitioners clearer obligations and consumers a more predictable way to hold them to account. These changes will provide greater consistency for consumers when interacting with these professions and systems, not just for the behaviour they can expect from the professionals they hire, but the processes and experiences they have when filing a complaint against a practitioner should something go wrong. Finally, Madam Speaker, the bill will have a staged commencement. Most of the bill will commence on the day after the royal assent of the bill. However, some changes to the LBP regime will commence through order in council. This is because they rely on changes to the LBP rules being passed by the Act. I commend this bill to the House.
Well, the interesting part will be what will be the devil in the detail. In principle, it sounds, so far on that speech, I would give the opinion it actually sounds like a logical forward sense thing. It makes sense that if you only have to go every 2 years to sit there and renew your do practical training, it should line up with a license. That kind of actually has some logical sense to it. Otherwise, you're ending up having things all higgledy-piggledy and a bit of a mess all over the place. On a DeepSeek, I went through with DeepSeek on this because I've had to jump in and do some of the research stuff that normally Laura would actually be doing. Sorry, this is a bit on the rush one, and I've had to rely on DeepSeek to help make this work. The arguments that basically, so these are the best basically the arguments for the Act. There is, this is clear, consumer focus with tangible benefits process on there. Do agree with the fact that, you know, someone who's come off name stays on the register for, 3 years after it. That's all about transparency. You know what I mean? That's nothing great. I mean, it's great to see someone that's focusing on transparency for a change. I mean, wish there could be many things the government could sit there and do on this. Alex, I'll deal with those super chats on later on. That's a super chat related one on there. And here's something that says Sparkies already knew their practicing license every 2 years after completion of your refresher course approved by the EBA. Yep. So I think that gives a bit of a summary of what is in there, and very good and clear, precise ways that Chris Peck has sat there and delivered the bill. Let's get on to the second reading with Arena Williams.
Is that the motion be agreed to? Arena Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Labor supports this bill at this stage, and I'm going to run through why that is, and also the questions that we will seek to explore at the Select Committee stage and with stakeholders who are very engaged in this bill. Because, Madam Speaker, it's important to understand that many of the people working in the sector, they've been engaging with MB and other government agencies on these changes since 2021. A program of work around the Building System Legislative Reform Program, as it was known then, had 5 key pillars. They were about building products, occupational regulation, this issue, risk and liability, the building levy, and particularly what it pays for, and offences and penalties. This bill acknowledges much of that work and seeks to implement some of that, but it's part of a package of reforms which is important to make sure that each part it has a sensible impact on the other parts, and that is why we are going to make sure that those stakeholders who are most engaged in this, particularly the people working in the sector, are able to comply with the new requirements of them, and that they are getting, what they think they have signed up for in a building system which is more efficient because of these measures. And Madam Speaker, I want to draw your attention to the legislative statement because there are some big claims that are being made to these stakeholders, particularly the claim the bill ensures that consumers can hold tradespeople to account if things go wrong. That is critically important in our building system, and it is not something that many consumers, particularly people, mums and dads who are building homes and trying to do that affordably and efficiently, can do at the moment. It is critically important that we improve that for people, and as electorate MPs, I'm sure many of us have been approached by constituents where things have gone wrong, or where they haven't been able to access the complaints processes or the insurances that they thought they had bought and paid for. So it's important that we ensure that those consumers are getting a fair go in this, and this kind of improvement to the occupational licensing regime is critical to that. But Madam Speaker, just to draw your attention as well to where this fits in with that bigger program of work, the difference between what was consulted on in 2021 is relevant here. The strengthening occupational regulation regime at that time was about supporting LBBs to do things faster and quicker. There are some of these changes here which come from that initiative, and those are a good thing. We support those. The supervision endorsements are something that we will be asking questions around about why those aren't being progressed in this, because those are important, particularly around some of those higher risk trades, like say internal waterproofing that were initially included in that program of work. Instead, we're seeing a focus here from the government on a self-certification regime at the lower end of risk, where you could also very helpfully for consumers advance their interests by improving the situation for higher risk works, which doesn't appear to be the focus here. Also, the industry was consulted on ensuring that non-licensed people aren't carrying out the higher risk work unsupervised. That's important, and there's an important sort of complaints aspect to that as well. It's important that we're capturing that kind of work for consumers, and that consumers understand how to raise issues around that. The penalties are high, but that relies on, proper auditing, proper accounting for the work going on, and if we don't have well-resourced councils, well-resourced regulators, then we can't say to consumers that is going to be a part of what the government says on the tin, that they will ensure that consumers can hold tradespeople to account if things go wrong. The third thing here is around improving consumers' access to products that spread their risk. Either that's insurance, or it's something that they pay for in their rates because the council is looking over it, or it's because of something that they pay for with their tax dollars because they have a regulator who is tooled up to be able to do this work. It is not fair if consumers are asked to bear extra costs associated with these changes, and that is certainly not the intention of the Labor Party to support something like that, so we'll be asking questions around that. Madam Speaker, in the last 40 seconds, I want to draw the House's attention to the Attorney General's vet of this bill. It's important to me as well that we make sure that the new investigative processes and information gathering powers are fair, that the new ability to enter into properties to be investigating this is something that is well understood within the industry and doesn't penalise the smaller players at the expense of the big ones. We want to make sure that New Zealand's building industry, where we back our builders, back our one-man bands, back our people out there who are doing the job, aren't unfairly disadvantaged at the expense of the larger players because of some of these new provisions.
And as you can see there from Marina Williams, that was on there, that the fact that they are supporting it for first reading, which that does seem, makes sense. It was said here on the DeepSeek on the things that she was conflating separate legislative agendas. So that was something that was mentioned there in the summary of what was happening there. However, DeepSeek does rank it as the second best speech, which being the best speech being the Minister of going through there. Basically, going by the looks of it, looking at the Hansard, all the parties in Parliament support the bill passed in first reading. There's a little bit of debacle over the select committee parts. Let's hear from my local MP, Julian Genter.
Honourable Julian Genter.
Tēnā koe, Madam Speaker. This morning I was on a panel, moderating a panel at the International Urban Health Conference. I don't know if any of the government members are going to be attending any part of that, but it's being held for 3 days at the Takina Centre here in Wellington, and there are experts from all over the world. And some of the other speakers on the panel with me are absolute experts in the built environment. And two particularly specialized in housing, and they were all making the same point, which is with all of the research they do, and these are academics who do research on the real world, work with local government, central governments, and private sector, and they look at the outcomes from different things. And they're saying one of the key determinants of health and a whole bunch of other things is housing and our buildings. And 90% of our time these days, most people, is spent indoors. And the quality of the ventilation and of the building has a direct impact on people's health. It's no mystery to New Zealanders that we have a problem with childhood asthma, we have a problem with cold, moldy, damp, expensive to heat homes, and this puts strain on our health system, and this affects productivity. So there's all these ways in which improving our building sector can help the entire country, which is why we should be doing that. This bill is the first of two bills. Obviously the second bill will be debated directly after this. And this bill, the Green Party can support because it's aiming to ensure that licensed professionals in building and construction sector can be appropriately held to account through complaints, disciplinary processes that are effective. So it's strengthening the occupational licensing regime. And I think that's a good thing. It's far from everything that's needed to improve our building sector. And I'm a little bit concerned that right now everyone has such a focus on bringing down the cost of building that we're not focusing on also lifting the performance of our buildings, because those buildings last for decades. People spend a lot of time in them. And if they're not built well, they will cost us more in the long run, both in direct costs in terms of heating or cooling, but also costs to society in terms of emergency admissions, long-term chronic health problems, which mean people can't work, or so it's like makes so much sense for New Zealand to improve its building sector. And we have to look at whole of life costs. And the answer is not getting rid of all regulation. In fact, quite the opposite. It's having smarter, better regulations that are well enforced. And we need to properly resource the people who are doing the vetting, doing the training, and doing inspections. And one of the things that was brought up on the panel, and this was from an American context, was how it's not enough to regulate the quality of the build. We need to have ongoing performance requirements around buildings as they're being used. So, for example, like a warrant of fitness for rental properties, something that my colleague Chloe Zorbeck I know is very passionate about and has proposed members' bills on. We can have a system that ensures that after the building's built, that we're checking and making sure that it's a healthy indoor air temperature, that it doesn't cost a fortune to achieve that it's not damp and moldy, and we can make sure that there aren't unhealthy products being used in those buildings, because we are going to find out there's a whole bunch of products that are really, really problematic. Microplastics? Yeah, oh yes, wool, yes. And the Green Party absolutely supports wool, and we support cross-laminated timber, and we support using natural, sustainable products that are produced here in New Zealand, and we can do that. We absolutely can do that. So that's an area where we could find cross-party support, potentially. This bill, in and of itself, I think is a good step. The next bill, we don't feel so confident about because it is, expanding the ability of builders and plumbers and others to self-certify their work.
Well, just with this bill at the moment.
Yes. So I think better regulations that actually measure the performance of the buildings, the things that we need to know, are something we have that data. It should be possible to do, and it's something the Green Party would love to work with the government on, because it will actually help improve productivity and health in our country.
And I think Julie and Genta probably might need to expand just on the fact about rental warrant of fitness, but possibly building warrant of fitnesses in general. The interesting part is with cars is the fact that we're subject to warrant of fitnesses every, 6 months as vehicles pre-2000, 12 months as post-2000, and if they're brand new, it's now 3 years. So that's something that's been there, and all heavy vehicle trucks are subjected to certificate of fitnesses, which are every 6 months, and the certificate of fitnesses are much thorough, whereas the housing aspect does not have really that much to do with it. But the interesting part is when it comes to the insurance part is the insurance part keeps the safety going, because the fact that if you don't have a valid warrant of fitness or within certain timeframes, you've got no insurance. Whereas if your car, whereas you own a house, you could have a house that the person declares it sounds as safe, but it might actually have, could potentially have a roof that could fall in the next week on it. And unless we have like a regime that actually makes sure that we check on these buildings and sit there and do that. I mean, I'd like to see the insurance industry actually sit there and start looking at things like buildings, warrant of fitness. That I do know body corps are subject to it, and body corps have been on the broad end of earthquake rules. I can confirm from Andre, one of our members of It's in the Ballot, he is the chair of a body corp. And there has been a lot of stuff having to deal with earthquake strengthening, and he's eagerly watching the latest pieces of legislation because it's like And yeah, that's also a good point there. Would that include pre-existing rentals? Well, but it probably should include pre-existing rentals. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer to sit down there and have a check and balance place. I mean, like it is. Some insurance companies require property inspections to be every 3 months for rental properties. Does that mean they actually sit down there and actually achieve anything as a result of the inspection? Might be a different story, but they say that in principle, it's meant to be something that's meant to happen. That's meant to try and keep everything's all in check. But that's kind of a self-reporting system. I can confirm one of the rental properties we never officially had a rental inspection the whole time I lived there, because the landlord, never gave us notice when he turned up. So if he did turn up unannounced, we'll let him in, but it was never classed as a proper inspection. And I'd say it probably would have full foul of the rental warrant of fitness if that was the case. Yeah. Let's continue on with Cameron Luxton, which looks a bit like a signaller's speech.
Cameron Luxton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, I rise as one of those LBPs, those licensed building practitioners who are out there doing the hard mahi on sites around the country, building these houses. And the thing that is driving us mental in the construction industry is the untenable delays that we face, waiting for inspections and waiting for things that building professionals, because the people who build our houses in New Zealand are professionals, know how to do. If we are going to be trusting our building professionals, Madam Speaker, they need to be held to a high account of themselves and of their industry. And that's what this bill does. The code of ethics that already exists, Madam Speaker, I have my quibbles with. It's got great things in there, like take responsibility for your actions and explain risk to the client. However, I'm not sure about whether a code of ethics can really figure out whether you've priced work fairly, whether you've acknowledged and respected cultural norms or other such unmeasurables. If it's going to be subjective, then it shouldn't be in a code of ethics. But, Madam Speaker, the building professionals in our country want to be held to a higher standard. They want their industry held to a higher standard. They want the respect that comes with the hard work and diligence that has been acquired over years of gaining a skill. And if someone's taking the mickey, the registrar needs to be able to deal with that. LBPs who are people who are impersonating LBPs need to be held to account. It's something that I have seen in the industry is people using LBP numbers. That's got to stop. LBPs have to be held to a high standard. That's what this bill will do, Madam Speaker. I commend it to the House.
And I gathered from what he is saying on the LPP numbers, is that just writing someone's random number that's to say that you're certified doesn't necessarily have something that sits there and backs it up. I don't know, but that could be a concern if it's sitting there going through there. I know when it comes to warrant of fitnesses on cars, the person who's cited to do the inspection can only do that in the places they're licensed to work. Like my one who does my car, Steve, he can only do it in his workshop in Waikanae. He cannot say, come out to my house to do my warrant of fitness. That's something I've learned is with my coffee cart, for example, is goes to a different place to the rest of my vehicles go for warrants because of the fact that my mechanic don't want it. But my mechanic, he would love to come out, do the inspection on the street. They do it. He's not allowed to do that. And so I have to go to VTNZ to do the warrant of fitness on that one. But it's interesting, the LVPs, I think that's what they call numbers. If that's been about having a more stricter system in place, basically, not just writing a number, but possibly having to attach certificates of the licenses to work it, that possibly is a good thing. Not sure how the execution of to make that work, but I mean, that's what select committees for, to sit there and nut out these bills. Let's now get on to Uncle Andy.
Andy Foster.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, I want us to consider what it is that we want out of our building system. The first one of those things is we want quality outcomes. That actually is the most important thing of all, that we have warm, dry homes that are also durable, and that's one of the challenges we have. Oh, my colleague, the Honourable Mark Patterson, is talking about wool, and he's absolutely right, a very fine product to use in these buildings. So we want quality outcomes that people can rely on, because, of course, for most people, the home is the most important investment, the biggest investment they will ever make, and they need to have some surety that is what they buy is going to be a quality product. The second thing, Madam Speaker, is we want to have a quick, efficient, reliable system that actually gets the consenting process is done in a reasonable way. And, of course, it's always good to speak on building issues after our resident builder, Cameron Luxton, because what you hear time and time again is that the consenting process, as it is at the moment, is really frustrating people. And here is, if you've got to wait for 2 or 3 or 4 days, or however many days it might be, to get an inspection at different stages of a building, that costs real money. It's not just the cost of the consenting, but it's the cost of the delay. Madam Speaker, this is all about streamlining processes, streamlining delivery process. We should be able to expect as we do everywhere else in life, that the person that provides you a service, if you looked at it in terms of consumer guarantees, that what they provide is fit for purpose. And that's really what this is about, is saying that when we have somebody who is a licensed plumber, gas fitter, drain layer, electrician, that they know what they're doing, they're suitably qualified, and they deliver the product that they are supposed to deliver. And I'm sure the vast majority do exactly that. Madam Speaker, what this also does is it says that if there is something wrong with something that somebody does, instead of going to the council, in this particular situation, and of course for councils it's a bit of a nightmare anyway. When I was in Wellington City Council, we were on the verge of handing back our warrant, or at least that's what I wanted us to do, because it was just a liability. So it's much better that the liabilities and the responsibilities lie with the people who are actually delivering the product, and they're doing it well. And so this streamlines the disciplinary procedures, gives more powers to the board that governs those things, and that it will mean a lot more. If you've got your name there and you're registered, that means a lot more than if you've been deregistered. And the other thing we need to make sure as we go through this process is that we don't have these Phoenix arrangements allowing people to get around them. In other words, that it is you individually, not you, Madam Speaker, but the individual who is performing the service who is responsible, not their 2016 version or their 2017 version, their 2018 version. It is them and them alone that is responsible for that and is held accountable for that. So, Madam Speaker, just to finish up, what we want is a really good process for holding practitioners to account for delivering something, a quality product, and to be held to account when something goes wrong. I'm very much looking forward to considering this in front of the Select Committee, and I commend the bill to the House.
And for those who are wondering to know, I believe Andy Foster is a licensed RMA commissioner as well. So he really does know his stuff in the councils and that sort of thing about consents. And this could be something that comes. It's a bit of a interesting thing about it is some councils don't even actually have building inspectors on their books. I know in the case of Taurua, if you need a building inspector, it's contracted out by a private company from Palmerston North, because Taurua does not have any building inspectors employed by Taurua District Council at the moment. I've heard, I hope that isn't the case in Wellington, and I hope we actually have a shopping list of building inspectors, considering how big our city is and how much the building goes. But that is also something that goes in there, is that often a lot of these people who are having to sit down there and do building inspections seem to basically, it's on that particular one. I'm going to skip over Dan Bidwell, because it just the speech lines that sits there and says in the Hansard in there is like it's about 2 lines. It's not even worth our time sitting there listening to that. So we'll get straight on to Reuben Davidson, and then we'll get for the final part for the vote.
Construction sector strengthening occupational licensing regimes amendment bill. Now, we know that New Zealand needs more warm, dry and safe homes. I don't think there would be anyone in the House who would disagree with that statement. How we go about it, we all have different approaches. But this is an interesting bill, and Labour is supporting the bill. But first and foremost, I think we need to keep front of mind the need to protect consumers, those people who we are building these houses for. So we know that we need stronger, clearer licensing systems that can improve efficiency across the building sector, and that will give strength and consumer confidence, the kind of consumer confidence that we know that we need. Now, we've always talked in the Labour Party about New Zealanders deserving, as I said at the top of my contribution, affordable, warm, dry homes that are built to last. So these need to be good quality homes, they need to be well built, and stronger licensing will help to lift that quality. But we also have to make sure that it's fair, that it's proportionate, and that it genuinely improves the safety of those homes. This bill does aim to introduce broader investigative and disciplinary tools. So we need to make sure that those are transparent, that they're balanced, that they're not punitive for smaller operators. And again, that's a role that the Select Committee needs to pay particular attention to, particularly through the lens of how this bill and can be improved to ensure stronger protections for the consumers, ultimately for the people who are going to live in those homes. Now, the other thing that this bill sets out to do, and it's great to have heard in one of the contributions this afternoon from a member across the way who has been a licensed building practitioner, Cameron Luxton from the ACT Party, that it needs to support competent tradespeople. And absolutely that's a focus that the Select Committee needs to give to progressing this bill, is how can it support competent tradespeople. One of the specific considerations that I think should be given ample time and submissions should be sought on how best we can integrate some of the new technology and technological innovations that can make that process for tradespeople so much better, can speed up what have been some of the traditional administrative and bureaucratic hurdles, speed bumps, if you will, that often interrupt what should be and would be a much more efficient, much more affordable process if there was less administrative load, less burden, less waiting time for builders and licensed building practitioners and tradespeople during the construction of new homes. So making sure that those technological advancements are investigated fully and prioritised through the development of this bill would ensure that some of the many frustrations that our very talented and very clever workforce face as they go about building the homes that we know New Zealand needs, trying to eliminate some of those through the use of this new technology. Now, the other thing I think we need to ensure in progressing this bill that we do support is that we don't shift the risk down the chain. So where we look at protecting and supporting competent tradespeople, we also need to make sure that we're not doing that at the expense of shortchanging ultimately the people who end up owning or living in these homes. So again, another focus for the Select Committee would be to make that a very clear priority to ensure that we don't simply shift the risk onto ultimately the occupier of the home. So if the bill has three aims, the first being to protect consumers, the second being to support competent tradespeople, and the third being strong consideration not to shift the risk down the chain, but to instead lift the quality of the homes that need to be warm, dry and safe for all New Zealanders. Thank you.
Carlos.
Reuben does have a good point about trying to make sure that you don't shift all the liability onto the occupant, but also making sure that we have a robust system for tradespeople who are working on our properties and doing our maintenance in New Zealand and earning an income from it. Let's have the fun part of the final bit over the voting, because things get a little bit interesting at the end of this bill. This is what happens when you do things under urgency. So let's get back to it.
Centre Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill be considered by the Transport and Infrastructure. Agree to those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Building and Construction Sector Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Building and Construction Centre Strengthening Occupational Licensing Regimes Amendment Bill be considered by the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call Honourable Chris Pink.
I present a legislative statement on the building and construction sector, self-certification by Plumbers and Drainlayers Amendment Bill.
No, you don't. Not just yet.
Oh, I move that the bill be referred to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee.
No, third time lucky. Report back date. You have a report back date.
Madam Speaker, I move that the bill be reported back to the House 4 months and 1 day from today's date.
Which would be, I think my reckoning would be the 19th of March 2026. The question is that that motion would be agreed to. Does anyone need clarification about what that is? Okay. Those of that opinion will please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for. Mr Clark.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
Te kaumarima ngā puti e whakahe.
Act New Zealand.
In favour.
New Zealand First. Te Pāti Māori.
E whā ngā puti e whakahe.
Taku Te Wheres.
Kotahi te poti whakahe.
Maria Meno Kapakini.
Kotahi te poti whakahe.
Members, the ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed to. I call on.
Okay, so you got to see a few things there that Chris Pink must not be obviously used to having to put legislation under truncated select committee timeframes. So you can probably guess, having to have the speaker guide him on No, that's not the one you want. This is no. This is the one you want. So, but hey, sometimes I mean, Chris Pink is a hard-working MP that has has other things to do. So he's not exactly focusing on basically running the show of Parliament on that one. Now, just give me a quick moment while I go to set up the next section. Don't have Laura to sit there and do that with me at the moment. But so I've got that section go through there, and we'll get through to Lord Alex of Super Chats, who has sat down there wanting Sam and Laura's take on the Manage My Health debacle debate, the vulnerability of the health records. There's more to that. Is just wanting to add what happens with Manage My Health leads to IT security procedures in there. A follow-on part was that he was interviewed by RNZ journalist, and then also, by the way, the interview from RNZ about Manage My Health debacle and stated IT security and process protocols need to be reviewed in the way of privacy being amended. It's shocking, but I'm not surprised. This government would see cybersecurity as a nice to have, not a function. It's quite concerning that we're in this boat and Manage My Health is the government system. I can tell you right now, I personally am not affected by the Manage My Health outbreak because my GP practice uses what's it called? A different entity. It's called. Well, that wasn't meant to. Okay, that wasn't exactly meant to happen. Just a moment while I go and fix things up on that one. Sorry, this is. So my GP practice, if we sit there and go onto the shared screen on here. Oh, far out. Gee, I'm hitting a lot of wrong keys in the wrong places today. So now I'm going to reset up shared screen. Got that, son. So if I go on there, this is what the Terrace Medical uses for the wellness portal. It is basically it's run by centric.co.nz, so it's definitely not public, but that's what my one uses, which is different to what Manage My Health is. But effectively, that does do the same job. But yeah, I would say I'm lucky I'm not exactly affected, but it is very concerning. This is something that has been a common problem with